The Me&Him podcast. Well, hello again. It's Jason here, one half of the Me&Him podcast. I'm here with my dad, Matt. How you going, Dad?
I'm still alive, son. I think that's a bonus.
I know. You say that every week now. Like, that's the only reason we're doing this podcast. It's like, give you something to look forward to.
Hey, I say it every bloody day to myself, you know.
Oh, well, I'm glad you're here. And, you know, these interviews and this season keeps on getting better and better. Like, I've had some great feedback about our early couple of episodes with Tim and Kim, the Tim and Kim show. Have you listened to those episodes recently? And, you know, it sort of just reflected on some of those learnings?
Of course. I've absorbed them deeply and meaningfully.
Yeah. You make any changes at 81 or what? Or are you just going to...
No, look I'll leave the Kardashians as they are.
Okay. All right. Well, speaking of Kardashians, we have an amazing guest this podcast. It's a gentleman who I've come to know more recently. He is one of our regional coordinators for the men's table, which is something we've spoken about in previous episodes, or I think in season 1 when the idea first sort of arose. And so I'd like to welcome Dave Robinson to the podcast, the Me&Him podcast. How are you, Dave?
Yeah, good. Thanks, Jason. I'm glad to be here, and thanks for the intro. And it's been good chatting with you and also Matt just a little bit earlier.
I mean, thank you for joining us. It's always hard to find the time that works for all of us. And without fail, Dad always forgets anyway. So then it's just a hassle to get him.
Hang on a minute, son. Yes, but not always.
Not always. No, 30% of the time. All right, fair enough. I misspoke. But Dave, so good to have you on. You have been someone who has obviously got involved in the men's table. Maybe, how long have you been doing it? Like, how long, what's your association been?
Oh, gosh. Just before I go there, I want to just say that when you first floated the idea of coming on the podcast, I had a listen to, it was only a few weeks ago, I think it was posted, your podcast with Dr. Kim.
Oh, yeah.
And it was really good to hear the three of you guys. I noticed the connection that you guys had.
Yeah.
Yeah, I picked up on that. And I thought, that's great. And to hear you both kind of talking and bantering, to me, that was awesome, our father and son.
All right, well, that's a perfect chance to get you involved. So, yeah, talk to us about what you do, your organisation, and the rest, Dave.
So going back to your original question, I joined my table, and I live just outside of Uralla, up on the New England tablelands, and Armidale's only 25 k's away, and my table, MT for men's table, number 42, it started about 3.5 years ago now.
How many tables are there? You got 42?
Well, that was number 42. Like the organisation started in 2011 with MT1 in Surrey Hills in Sydney. So Armidale table was number 42 3.5 years ago.
Wow.
We've now and we've now just numbered number 230.
Cool.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Phenomenal.
Yeah. And what is a table? A table is a group of men, ideally kind of 10 to 12 men, that meet together once a month over a meal. And so we've got in excess of 2,000 men Australia-wide that come together and talk about the things that you were just touching on, Matt.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And we have, I'm not trying to do a sales speech, but we have what we call our fundamentals. And they underpin everything, including the organisation. Mm-hmm. And our fundamentals are kind of a set of guiding principles. They're not rules as such, and I can tell you from long experience, they work. Now, I'll touch on the long experience bit in a little bit, but I had a bit to do with the kitchen, because I was one of the original co-hosts, one of the early co-hosts, I should say.
Sorry, the kitchen?
Yes, yeah. So the kitchen is kind of like HQ, if you like.
Dad loves the kitchen, by the way. Okay. Like, that's where he's mostly found.
Right. Okay. So the kitchen is kind of the men's table HQ, and all of our naming is around meals. And we're called the kitchen because we serve the men at our tables.
Mm-hmm. I like that.
Yeah, and there's about 17 of us in the kitchen, I think. And I'm one of, I forget the exact number, but it might be like about 10 regional hosts around the country.
Wow.
And as a regional host, if you think, coordinator and kind of, bit of a mentor perhaps sometimes, but just kind of making sure that tables are going okay, and trying to keep things going towards the fundamentals.
And Dad, these fundamentals, it's very easy when guys catch up, talk about new sport and weather, whatever it's got. You talked about in a previous episode, guys sort of ribbing each other, denigrating each other, like a little bit of horseplay is a way of connecting, right?
Yes.
It's not necessarily, it's not fit for purpose when there's deep emotional stuff going on, and when there's, when there's crisis management or there's challenges. You sometimes need to have a real conversation, and these fundamentals are essential to provide guidelines for those conversations. And one of them, which I'm working hard on right now, very hard, is not fixing and listening and holding space. Yeah, holding space for another person. Forget even man or woman, holding space and going, listening. I said, you said this. Tell me more. What about that bit? What about this bit?
Isn't that what conversation is meant to be all about?
I know. Dad's big on the listening, right? But it's hard between guys because we just aren't we, Dave? We're preordained to sort of fix and solve and move forward.
Yeah.
Yeah. Look, I think rather than preordained, I think we've been programmed to fix.
Yes, Dave.
To provide solutions, and we hear somebody that's having a difficult time, and we automatically switch into this fixing mode. Oh, have you thought of trying this? Or maybe you could do this. Or
because you want to help, right?
Yeah.
It's like repairing a car or something. Yeah.
Yes.
As opposed to, why did it fail anyway?
Yeah.
And how can we fix the primary issue as opposed to, twiddling a few bolts and whatever?
The fufu valve.
Yeah, and just on kind of primary issues, and I've been involved with the men's table 4.5 years, but I've been involved in this area, men's group and group work and stuff going back about 15 years, and I've seen the same principles that underline the men's table fundamentals. I've seen those at work for that long, and they go back to organisations like the one I first started in, Mankind Project, which had its beginnings after the Vietnam War.
Wow.
So these principles, underlying principles, go back kind of a good 50 years.
If not thousands, surely, right?
And so one of the things I've learned, in those 15 odd years, is that if we allow a man or a person, but in this case, men, if we allow a man space and we hold space for him, and perhaps if we ask the right questions,
yes,
he has his own answers inside.
So deep.
And that is far more empowering if he comes to his own answers, rather than me thinking, I know what's wrong with you, you need to do this.
Dave, one of my throwaway lines is that men talk in meaningful grunts. And that's kind of how it goes. Whereas women have lots of intuition and feeling going on, and 3 women can have 5 conversations going on at once and be perfectly happy. Man to man, we've got to look each other in the eye and go, oh, yeah, mate. Oh, good. I'm pleased to hear that. And how are the kids?
Matt, on that intuition thing, I feel that it's not a matter of that women have more intuition.
We don't access it?
Yes. It's been...
We haven't built the muscle.
Yeah, and it's been covered over. We've been sort of programmed to numb ourselves down, to dull our feelings down.
Dave, I'm with you 100% on that. We have an innate potential. I don't think it's as acute and as accurate as our
Because women give birth, right?
female partners
they have another level of connection.
But we do have it, and I've spent the last decade and a half of my life trying to actually listen to the little voice, because the male, whatever it is in me,
egoic nature,
he said, "Oh no, that's not logical.
You can work it out. Use your conscious mind.
Stuff that crap." And in actual fact, more than 50% of the time, the little voice is right.
Yeah. And look, Matt, I've done a whole bunch of things as far as work goes, and I started out in engineering, and I've been very strongly intellectually dominant. Yeah, I've been a thinker. Yeah, as far back as I can remember.
Yeah, that's not helpful.
No, but
I've never met one of those in my life.
we're all stuck in that glitch, I think, Dave.
We've all got the same. We're all in the same trap.
Yeah. But I've found that kind of accessing more of who I am, and I love the fact that when you in your intro you're saying that you have this curiosity, and to me I didn't realize it until relatively recent times, but I've had this innate curiosity about the world, about things, and about myself. And about 15 years ago, I started asking questions of myself. Like, well, why do I respond the way I do? Why do I react this way?
Why do I bring this time, like, and it's not working?
And so I kind of started, for want of a better term, working on myself and chipping away. And so basically what I'm getting to with that is that my intellect, although it's still strong, it tends to take more of a back seat these days, and I'm more able to hear that still small voice, that intuition.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes.
Nice.
And I'm have a greater sense.
That little voice of wisdom.
Yeah, but it's even more than that for me. It's like there's times when it's like, it's a voice, but it's also a feeling.
Mm.
And I tend to trust my feelings more and more.
Well, look, so we've got a taste. This is Dave. I'm curious. I don't know about you. Well, I know you're curious, Dad. We're all curious, apparently.
I'm always bloody curious. That's why I'm still alive, you idiot.
And you know what? There's something to be said for that, right? Like, it's the firing of the neural networks. It's the blood flow. Obviously it's activity as well. But you need to keep learning and keep growing and keep changing. And I mean, there's an expression, I think it's a Buddhist expression, that a tree either grows or decays. It never just stands still and goes, all right, I'm good for now. It's either growing or it's dying. I think we're similar, and
the same argument applies to rocks too, except it's a larger time period.
Wow. Okay, going deep with the time period here. Okay, cool. So let's pick up this journey, Dave. If you're cool, to hang. I want to get further into this.
Yeah, sure.
Just in a sec, Dad. You ready? You got your wine topped up. You good to go?
Oh no, I'm falling asleep like every geriatric does.
You're 81. That's understandable. All right, we're going to get started right after this. The Me&Him podcast.
Dave, it's a privilege to meet with you and talk with you.
Likewise, mate. Likewise.
But I, as a geriatric beginner to all this, where did you start? What prompted you to feel there was a need to care for men and their issues and formulate a process by which you could manifest that?
Oh gosh, I suppose I'm going to step backwards in steps, I think.
Sure.
But having kind of asked the questions I mentioned earlier, I became involved in men's groups or men's work, as it's sometimes euphemistically called, and I helped kind of start a small men's group here in Uralla some years ago.
Was that just off your own back?
No, there was a local guy that had been involved in other men's stuff up in Queensland, and he moved here. And I saw a Facebook post or a community post or something, and kind of we'd both done some stuff, so we kind of carried it for a few years. But prior to that, as I mentioned, I'd been involved in Mankind Project more for my own benefit. But I suppose
that's often where it starts, Dave.
Yes,
a penny will drop from somewhere, and you'll go, "Oh shit, I've neglected that. I better do something about it."
Yeah, and being involved with Mankind Project, and then sort of, I didn't have a lot of access to that because most of that stuff was kind of a fair way from me. Like the nearest set of guys was kind of Bellingen. It's a bit of a drive for me. But I still kind of kept, kind of looking at myself and chipping away at my own issues, and started to see the benefit of it. And particularly when we started the men's group in Uralla, it was just good to see guys and to see their changes, just by being able to open up and holding space for them and asking the right questions.
Did you get the feeling around the room?
Yes, very much so. Kind of, and now that you mention that, there was the feeling around the room, and there was the feeling coming from each man, and kind of, and sometimes that was fluid. Sometimes the energy coming from each man would kind of combine and make the whole feeling in the room. And other times you could
energy management.
Other times I could pick up that some guys just weren't quite here tonight, and other guys were really there, sort of thing.
That's that empathy and that intuition you're talking about, isn't it? Like starting to create the space to feel and notice the subtleties of what is actually going on, and not just the judgment and maybe and I could be wrong here, but a lot of guys are very protectionist. They don't like to share because they're scared of the other person. They're defensive of the other person. They judge the other person.
I mean, they'll tell you which spanner to use to loosen that bolt.
Because they'll make me feel like I'm knowledgeable, and it's yes.
But they won't tell you how they felt last night when they almost felt like crying.
Or worse.
But you're right, Jason. And I didn't really realise it as succinctly as what we're describing now. But if I could maybe take another step back, kind of about 15 years ago, where it kind of pretty much really started, or really took a significant leap for me. And around that time, as I said, I'd started to ask questions about life, the universe, and everything, basically.
That's what this podcast is about, so you're in the right place.
Yeah. And the answer 42 didn't kind of equate to anything. So like,
were you 42 years old at the time?
I was probably mid to late 40s. No, about mid 40s. Yeah.
There we go.
But
so that means you weren't a pan-dimensional being.
Yeah, that's it.
Everyone's read it. Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. I'm hoping, listeners. Yeah. Sorry if you haven't.
But interestingly, up until that time, and at that stage I was, and in inverted commas, happily married, and I had four kids, 16 down to 8.
You've done good.
Oh.
Yep.
Congratulations.
Never going to look back from that.
But I didn't realise it at the time, but in retrospect now, there was an awful emptiness inside me.
Mm-hmm.
And
yes.
Yep. And at that time, I thought I was fine. I was great. I didn't have any baggage.
Yeah, we all do.
Yeah. I didn't think I had any issues. And I thought
we are so good at lying to ourselves. It's unbelievable.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, and I was one of the best, I reckon.
I don't know. I could have taken you in a race.
But anyway, and even up until that point, I'd thought and I'd said to people, I've got a great marriage and I thought I had a great childhood. The fact that I could hardly remember much of it, that kind of didn't rate.
Blocked a lot out.
Yeah. I see that now, but I didn't see that then.
This is amazing.
So true.
The things you block out.
These things are part of the growth passage.
Yeah.
And it's not always comfortable, but it's often very necessary.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And what really kind of pushed things along, so to speak, was my then wife wanted to separate, and I did not see that
Threw you
coming.
into the abyss.
Oh, I did. I fell into a big dark hole.
It's not uncommon, Dave. We men just are so preoccupied with externals that sometimes we neglect the internals, and they just come up like a tsunami and overwhelm us. And we go, what the fuck?
And look, I can now see that I had so much of who I was, or who I thought I was, invested in this image of myself and wife and
having
kids.
It all together. You worked it out, brother.
A role model which ultimately turned out to be false because it was predicated on logical patterns as opposed to emotional patterns.
Or like you said, programming at the very start. There was a programming to it, the whole Cinderella story, right? Like, wow, okay, that's a big. So that was hard. That was hard, Dave. Like,
and I'll go there in a minute.
Heartbreaking.
But it was, but I also know now that part of that picture of a wife and 4 kids was like after a lot of digging, and I'll kind of jump around here a little bit, but I worked out that I didn't feel like I belonged to my own family of origin, because I was the eldest of 4, and here it was. I had this family, like I was part of a family, but not like I was before. But even then, that emptiness, I still didn't feel connected to my wife and kids. So I was using them in a sense, not consciously, but using them.
Well, that's a lot of awareness there, Dave. I don't think many people get to that stage of awareness.
You're absolutely right, son.
I was using them for my sense of myself, and it just felt like the rug had been pulled from under me. And
Once you saw that, you can't unsee it. Oh, yeah. I feel you.
And so I didn't handle that separation very well. My ex-wife sort of got on with life and looking after 4 kids, and I fell in a big hole, and some of my issues really came to the fore. And one of the issues I've battled with, and I've done a fair bit of work on, is responsibility. And I've come to see that I used to either run away from responsibility because I was scared of it, or I would take on responsibility that wasn't mine.
Yep.
And when my wife separated, I fell into this big hole, and I kind of basically dropped out of society to a large degree. I couldn't function.
Dave, can I ask you one question? Which one of you triggered the separation?
His wife did.
Yes, yeah, yep.
And Dave, just so you know, been there, right? So I know what it feels like to have someone say, I think we should separate. And I know all the equations that go on in your mind about the kids, the financial arrangements, the emotional disconnection, the not having someone beside you watching family shows together. Like the heartbreak and the shock. The only way I could describe it was like being hit by a Mack truck. Like it just took me out. And I'm emotionally not prepared. And I'm not saying that, everyone reacts like that, but I know the seismic impact of emotion that comes with someone being braver than me to tell me what's the GO in our relationship. And I'm not saying that's you, by the way, that I was the one who felt I should have called that earlier.
That's a very typical male response because our attention is elsewhere. And look, we rarely see it coming.
And look, for me, I'd been married for 19 years, and we'd been an item for 5 years before that. So we'd spent over half of our adult lives together.
Wow.
And we talked. Yeah, and we talked every night.
Mm-hmm.
You know, but what I came to see is that we talked about the kids every night because there was 4 of them, and you know, as you know, like in a large
Isn't that
family, there's
common
always
too?
stuff going on.
Yeah.
But we'd lost the connection with ourselves, with each other.
Yes.
Sort of thing.
Can I just throw in a line I heard mentioned in actually it was a finance conference, but it was in the expression was what you respect moves towards you. In this case, he was talking about money, and what you don't respect moves away from you. And I remember that line because I thought about it, and I thought it's what you respect is what you put time into, is what you invest into, is what you focus on, what you put attention on. And if I'm respecting my relationship, I'm thinking about date night. I'm thinking about the little things I can do. I'm thinking about, you know, I don't know, the last conversation we had and how to make amends. But if I'm just thinking about my kids, I'm thinking about work and the pecking order and the priority order, this thing is losing energy. I don't know if I've just gone on off on a tangent there, Dave. But
No, you haven't. You're describing something which is very typical. I don't mean to presume to speak for many males, but I think it's quite common, and we all kind of fall into that trap.
Yes. Yeah.
So please continue, Dave. I'm sorry to interject there, but just find it's connecting.
Yeah. So kind of, like I said, I'll probably jump forward and jump backwards as well. So in the years after, you know, my marriage fell apart, you know, I was floundering for quite a while. And
Been there. Know that, my friend.
Yeah, I think anyone listening to this maybe can either relate or at least has had some similar experience.
But what I found is, and I'll just mention that kind of, it seemed like that innate thing in me to want to know, that curiosity.
Yes.
So when I look back,
sorry to talk over you, Dave. It's that kind of a driving force keeps us alive.
I don't know if he agrees with you.
Well, no,
Dad, you've said your piece. Let him answer.
No, hang on. The key word was curiosity. I'm older than all of you, and it's my curiosity and my warped sense of humor which keep me alive.
And heart medication.
No, Christ.
Sorry. So, Dave, back to you.
Sorry, Dave.
No, that's all right. I hear what you say, Matt, but when you say that curiosity keeps us alive, yeah, I mean, I could go off on a couple of tangents there, and I don't want to go too far, but for me, a lot of us actually lose that curiosity.
Correct.
And we might still be breathing, but I feel like one of the reasons I'm where I am today,
yes,
is that curiosity.
Absolutely, I couldn't agree with you more.
And I feel that, very unfortunately, many people have it. It gets covered over, or it's not nurtured, or whatever it be. And our world today is full of things to kind of to dull us down and dampen that curiosity.
Let's talk about curiosity then. So I love the word. I think kids are endlessly curious, hence the reason they're asking why all the time, right?
And that's how they grow, son.
That's how they grow. So curiosity is I get it. It's firing all the synapses. Your brain's healthy, blood's flowing, everything's going forward. So you've got that sort of curiosity, but you've also got the sort of the whole energy of sort of trying to understand, to become more in a way, to it's a spiritual
which you're driven to do by your genes and your development processes.
Yeah, there's one thing that's understanding things that you can understand. There's another thing about getting a sense of the things that you can't quite understand, but you want to believe in to give you stability. Does that just take it too in the ether there, mate? Or
no. That's
you see, this is where we are as mature human beings. I don't think we're ever properly evolved until we die. But
you're almost there, Dad.
Well, I'm working hard on it, son.
Yeah, he's almost fully evolved, Dave.
Yeah.
He's,
I don't
I'm
want to
in the presence of greatness.
he will flower and then he will die. Just like, what's that thing in the Botanic Gardens?
Look, I'd feel terribly guilty about spending all your inheritance and then dying. That would be so
Don't
cruel.
feel guilty. We've all had a chat. We've got used to that. We've accepted it. So, Dave, please continue. Yeah.
So what I'd like to do is maybe go back a bit and take a few steps back and kind of alluding to the curiosity aspect. And I don't know what the curiosity level is in every person, and we're all different. And we've all had different journeys, so to speak.
Correct.
But there's been a few kind of key steps in my life, other than that 15-year ago patch. When I was 17, I came down with chronic fatigue syndrome.
Oh, wow.
And I had it for 15 years.
At that age, that's incredible.
And in amongst all that, I ended up in a wheelchair with a weird form of arthritis.
It's an immune system.
Dave, you are a real survivor and an example to us all.
Well, maybe that's up for whoever's listening to decide, I suppose.
Well, I'm listening, and I'm telling you.
Okay. So, kind of getting back to the curiosity thing, and I didn't know it at that time, and I didn't know it till probably about 8 or 10 years ago. Looking back over my life. But back when I came down with the CFS for short, and sometimes it's called myalgic encephalitis or something like that. But in amongst that, as I said, I ended up in a wheelchair with a weird form of arthritis. And I was 15 years with the CFS.
Wow.
And back then, this was 1981, and I was about to start year 12, like my HSC, and I just wasn't coping. I was tired all the time. I couldn't focus, at 17, you're supposed to be coming into the physical prime of your life.
Sure.
And that didn't happen for me. Anyway, so it kind of started me. How it came to be noticed was I was always a quiet boy, always a good boy. I'd blush at the drop of a hat, all those sort of things. Never made waves. But I was frustrated in school one day, and the teacher was a bit late coming in, and there was one of those cork notice boards on the wall.
God, I'm loving this. I've seen it before. Keep going, please.
Yep, and it's screwed to a brick wall, and I was just frustrated, just this building sense of frustration.
You punched it, right?
I punched it.
Yeah, there we go.
And I broke a bone in my hand.
Oh, yeah.
Not good.
Yeah.
At that age in particular.
Yeah, anyway, and I'd fainted after seeing what I'd done. Apparently, I had a bit of a convulsion on the floor.
Oh, that's
so
not good.
That set the wheels in motion to investigate what was going on. And
well, that's good.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
But it started me on the journey of what I call the medical roundabout.
Oh, right. They thought there was something like that.
I know exactly what you're referring to there, my friend.
Yeah. So anyway, I saw doctor after doctor after doctor, because back in 1981, CFS or ME was only just starting to become a thing. Back then, if you had it, you're labelled as having the yuppie flu or being a malingerer, all those sort of things.
Exactly. Yes.
Biology hasn't caught on to how fast the world has evolved cerebrally.
Yes.
There are new diseases coming out because all diseases are a disease of the nervous system and an inflammation in my mind. So please continue.
So anyway, I saw doctor after doctor and specialist after specialist, and each time I'd see somebody different, I'd get a different label. And I worked out fairly quick that none of these guys knew. Nobody was prepared. Yeah, and nobody was prepared to say, I don't know.
The lack of honesty in the profession. Yes.
Take this pill. Like usually that's what you want though, right? Take the pill. Oh, that'll fix me.
Yep. But what I realised...
The pill is the placebo.
But what I realised what that helped me to do was to start to question. And because typically, and back then, and it's still to a big degree today, yeah, doctors are seen as right up there in the tree of authority, and you don't question them, sort of thing. But back then, I started.
They question themselves, though, don't they? They're like, "Do you think it's this? Have you ever seen the episode of House? Like, oh, I think it could be this. No, it can't be that because of these symptoms. It can't be that. Oh, who knows? We'll just try this drug and see what happens."
Yeah.
Dave, I love your expression, the tree of authority. It's a beautiful metaphor, and it describes things quite precisely.
And look, I want to say I'm not anti-doctor or anti-medicine. Don't get me wrong. But it was like I just worked out that, these guys didn't know what was going on. And so it was like...
But it must have given you insight, right? From what they were saying and what you were hearing and what you were learning. You were. It's like trial and error. It's like, that doesn't work. This doesn't work. That doesn't work. You lead you to the thing that works, right? Like Edison's light bulb.
Son, there comes a time when you get sick and tired of being the lab rat.
Anyway, what that did for me was to question just about everything.
Good.
Like anything that was coming at me.
Yes.
And that's really kind of helped propel me, and it's put me in good stead. And so as I got better, and also to help with that, I started to seek out alternative therapies. Everything from naturopaths, and
look at the spectrum.
Yep. All sorts of things.
It's a familiar pattern, and I can resonate with that 100%.
A lot of guys been on that journey, I think.
And I ended up with a very good German doctor who was an anthroposophical doctor.
What?
Wow.
Sorry. Can you give me a definition of that?
Anthroposophy is Rudolf Steiner's study of man, basically.
Oh, yeah. I'm familiar with Steiner.
Yeah, and you might have heard of Steiner schools.
Yes.
Anyway, the thing with this doctor was that he was more than just a doctor. We would have long conversations, and I came to see that he was a teacher.
Wow.
Dr. Gruyer was his name.
Very
German, and he would often recommend different books for me to read. Not necessarily Rudolf Steiner stuff. Some yes, but all of that thing, that kind of questioning things, that wanting to know, combined with reading other things and talking to different people,
and absorbing more and more new knowledge.
Yes.
It shifts your perspective.
Yes, very much.
It helps form your developmental perspective on life.
But don't you think at the end of the day we're kind of fluid? Our self-concept is fluid because the more we understand, the more we realize, the more we're all one. Like there's this unfolding of the human psyche, right? To release the ego.
It's definitely fluid.
Yes, Dad's got his wine there. Yeah, nice one, Dad. That's why I got you on the logo. But so this questioning thing has opened so many doors for you, and so where did they lead?
Well, I'd been raised. My mum's side of the family was very strongly Catholic. My dad was an atheist, but my mum's side very strongly Catholic. She had
interesting
two sisters who entered the convent, and a brother that trained for the priesthood. But in amongst all of this, but in amongst
that
all
is
this,
right. That's what you do. You're doing the right thing by the family.
Yes, yeah. And so I was a practicing Catholic up until kind of about 16, 17 years ago.
I apologize for interrupting, but the English language has been something that I've loved all my life. And you use the word practicing, and it has two meanings. One is I was a compliant, faithfully observant, and the other is I was just playing a game. And I'm sorry, I'm just being naughty here. I know what you meant.
Yeah, well, I was having a third version. I was doing a third version.
Oh, okay.
Bit of both.
Tell me.
Yeah. I was doing a bit of both.
Turning up.
I had a foot in both camps.
Yeah.
And look, I used to say to people for a long time, I'd say to them, I'm a practicing Catholic, but don't tar me with the same brush as everyone else, because I have my own thoughts and my own questioning.
Yes.
And at that time, those questions were becoming stronger and stronger, starting to ask the questions, like, well, why am I here? Well, what is life all about?
Mm-hmm.
And how did it come about? And what's his purpose?
And was it like 6,000 years ago?
Yeah, all that sort of stuff. And so
these are important questions, and which most people shelve. They put them away in some dark corner, not to be revisited until their own mortality hits them in the face.
And at one point, and this was after I was free of the arthritis and CFS, so probably I think it was about the late 90s. No, sorry, it would have been late 90s. Yep.
That was a good period, by the way, in human evolution. But anyway, yes, I'm glad you came right by then. Late 90s were awesome.
I started to look more into, I didn't want to let go of my Catholic faith, so to speak, and just to sort of go to nothing. I didn't want to let that go, but I'd had a lot of questions. And once again, I didn't realize it at the time succinctly about the questioning. But I started to dabble in, for want of a better term, and I don't really like the term, but some New Age stuff.
Oh, all right, okay. Not witchcraft then?
No,
Dave,
none of that.
Dave, I'm with you there. I hear what you're saying, and it resonates with what has happened in my life. No, not paganism and not bestiality, you idiot. I just eat meat. I don't mistreat it.
Yeah. So you found. Look, correct me if I'm wrong here, and I've been through a similar journey, my friend, and I hope that a lot of people who are on this journey with us all know that either they've been through it or they're going to go through it at some point, because it's an unfolding of our, and it's a reinvention of our self-concept. It's a paradigm shift, whatever you want to call it. But at some point, you have to find something and believe in something greater than yourself. You have to. So what did you find?
Well, I found, compared to like the Catholic Church and the dogma and the rituals and all that sort of stuff, I found some of the New Age stuff was kind of nicer, gentler, more people-orientated, so to speak. But on some level, I kind of worked out, the answers I was seeking, they weren't there.
It's like Buddhism, by the sounds of things. You got to work it out for yourself.
There are no answers, only questions.
The right questions, yes.
Okay.
That's where curiosity, we go full circle, right? Because you're asking the right questions. You're always curious.
Dave, you're wandering into territory, which I'm very familiar with. Okay. It's been part of my life passage. So what you're saying resonates very closely with my experiences.
And also what I found was, and once again, I wasn't so aware of it at the time, a lot of the people involved in that sort of stuff, it was kind of... It was
authentic?
Yeah. They were
merchandisers.
Oh, well, some of them might have been, but it was more...
Yeah, that's what I'm doing right now. So
I meant that.
Hey, welcome to the Me. Did I mention our website? Me&Him. We've got some merch available.
Hey, Tammy Faye, where are you now? Come back, please.
Anyway, sorry, no, we're going for the tangent. So yes,
yeah. So I kind of got a sense, as I say, that it was nice and all the rest of it, but I found a lot of it didn't make sense to me. A lot of it didn't seem that grounded. So on the one hand, I'd gone to mass just about every Sunday for years, and a lot of that stuff didn't make sense and wasn't answering my questions. And I gradually kind of withdrew from Catholicism, saying some of the prayers and going to confession and stuff like that. It just and a lot of the stuff that I heard, from the pulpits, it just didn't add up.
So can I interject again?
Well, you probably will anyway.
Yeah, he will. He always says that, but he says it while he's interjecting.
Well, I'm trying to be polite,
make it polite. Yeah, no, it doesn't make it any more polite.
I think the phrase is, and this works for me too, is it didn't resonate anymore.
Yeah, that's
it's vibes, right?
Yes. Yep. So the Catholic Church wasn't where it was at, but the New Age stuff that I'd been exposed to wasn't
quite doing it for you.
Yeah, and it kind of gradually brought me to this point around about 15 years ago, where I was questioning things and
started your own religion. I was hoping you'd go there, a cult or something.
Yeah,
no.
Gold to Dave.
Count me in.
I'm in too.
What size donation do you need?
Right now, something with a lot of zeros behind it.
Oh, you use the Hollywood crowd.
You mean only 5?
Oh, dear. No, so around that time, all that questioning, marriage falling apart and all the rest of it, I came across some spiritual teachings. But before I go there, I feel that the term spiritual,
too spiritual.
Yeah.
It's been given a lot of bad press.
Yeah. I think the S at the front of it has got something to do with it. I'm not sure how.
Let's go universe.
Well, that's the serpent starts with an S, so what else do you expect?
All right.
But I find, it's over the years, it's a term that's been bandied about, and I hear of people talking about being spiritual and all the rest of it. And it's like, well, what is that? What does it mean?
I think it has something to do with magic mushrooms. But
for some people, yes.
No. That's before the law courts at the moment. We can't discuss that.
Okay. So maybe it's not magic mushrooms.
Yeah. So, but for me, I ended up coming across and to me, it was, well, what is spiritual for me? For me, spiritual is about growth, development, and particularly about becoming more loving.
Mm-hmm. More loving.
Yes.
So good.
Dave, tell me about your adventures, because in a different way with different triggers, my adventures and I'm trained as a scientist, my spiritual pathway has taken turns that I would never have expected, and ultimately all positive.
Yes.
The Me&Him podcast.
Yeah, look, and for me, this is just my journey, and my discovery, my unfoldment, so to speak. This is what this is about. This is what spirituality is about for me. It's about discovering about who we are, who I am, and more about love and becoming more loving. They're the sort of things that, for me, encompass spirituality.
How do you become more loving? Is it part of that holding space like you're talking
about? That's a result of becoming more loving. So for me, in amongst that time in my life, as I mentioned a number of times, I'd also been kind of asking more questions, and I think I did a mind training seminar somewhere, and as part of that, I came across a DVD called The Secrets of the Universe.
Oh, that's helpful.
This sounds interesting. And basically what it was...
Can you send it to me?
Yeah. Basically what it was divine truth teachings is what it's called. And it's about your own connection with God and about your own... And what prevents that? And what prevents us being more loving? And a lot of that is about our own stuff, about our own crap, about our own
past
shit.
They're holding on to.
Yeah, about our own traumas, like, the little T traumas and what happened when we were little and stuff like that.
Being locked into Drama Central and never getting out of it.
Yeah, but even more than that, it's about the injuries that we pick up, the emotional and psychological injuries, being shut down as a kid. And the typical thing that relates to men is, real men don't cry, and that's BS. But and I'm sure you'd probably relate to this, Matt. That
fuck yeah.
Back as a kid, it's like, if you don't stop crying, I'll give you something to cry about. And corporal punishment.
The good old days, before PC crap and wokeism.
Yeah, and it was like, as a sensitive child, a sensitive kid.
Yes,
that sort of stuff one of those really.
Too. I am an only child.
That's fear and intimidation. Yeah. If you get a chance at some point, Dave, listen to maybe some of the earlier episodes with Dad's upbringing, but definitely the fear and the belt and also the moods. Super sensitive to the moods.
Yeah. Yes.
Well, the constraints of the circumstances. I'm older than both of you, and I was born at the end of the war, 1944. And it was a very underprivileged time, and born in the middle of a city, no playgrounds, no nothing. It was sterile, and it forced me further inside myself and the dysfunctional relationship between my parents, which was the only relationship that I could experience. It didn't help either. So I'm with you, Dave. It takes a long time sometimes to know that there's something inside you which is needed healing that you can never access until a particular set of circumstances arose.
Yes, yeah. But when I watched that DVD, it was like I had all of these questions answered. I had more questions answered in a 3-hour presentation than I'd had in 30-odd years of searching. And I could start to see, and I made a comment earlier, about we all have our own answers inside us.
Yes.
And I now see that's the case. And it's like...
You needed that to trigger these answers.
It's how do we find them, which is the issue.
Ask the question.
It's not that they're not there. It's just that no one has given us the tools to work towards them and reveal them.
Yes, yeah. And so as a result of listening to that and coming to sort of see that, it was like I went from having, I got no problems, I got no baggage, to holy shit.
Yep.
Holy
I can't carry this baggage.
I'm with you there, pal.
Oh my gosh. I was like, holy smokes. And I saw...
It's like the blind spot, isn't it? You turn around and it's just all this shit in the corner that you haven't been looking at.
Yeah. And
it's been growing into a mountain which is about to spill itself over the top of you.
Yeah. And look, I started to listen to more of this stuff and talking to God more, which I had always done. But this gave new insights. And I want to stress, I'm not at all religious. And you might have picked up that I haven't been for some time. Like, I'd been questioning stuff around the Catholic Church
look,
for ages.
please, you don't need to explain. We all have our different connections with the spiritual.
Yes.
And there are different pathways for each of us that work at times and other times they don't. So
yeah, I think religiosity and spirituality, it's all pointing to the same thing. It's not the finger that's pointing, but it is the direction that it's pointing towards, which is something greater than oneself.
It's the yearning inside which is pointing.
To let go.
And so having been taught, or having been told at least, that that there was much more available in my connection with God and much more available in my connection with myself by tuning into God more, but also dealing with my shit. I started looking at it, and I started being more self-reflective than
You're
I ever
more
had
mindful. You can actually see your own shit and think, oh,
been.
shit,
the shadows.
I'm responsible for some of
Kim,
that.
Kim talked about the shadow self. I think this is part of it, like the bit that
Yeah.
just casts
Yeah.
behind us.
Yeah, and I started going to some Divine Truth seminars and stuff like that, and over the course of a weekend, it was like there was a whole wall came down. It was like I'd already had some oh shit, holy smokes moments, but over the course of one weekend, I came to see that my whole life up until that point had been lived and lived out of fear. My entire existence pretty well. And
That's how the politicians control us. They control us through fear.
Yes, but having said that, I agree with that.
Any control system.
But our own fear controls us.
Well, which is environmental, right? Like you're not born. I mean, you're born with survival instincts. I got to get fed. I got to, I feel unsafe or I need to be cuddled. But the actual fear of what's around us, the people around us, that's instilled upon us. That's imbued into us.
Yes, that's not a natural thing, I don't believe.
No.
Yeah,
I think it is partly natural.
Well, it's natural for survival.
It's a context.
It can be mitigated.
When you find yourself within a group of your peers, whatever age they are, you suddenly realize that it's a contest. And there are people who want to be supreme and some who agree
alpha
to be
males.
supine. And
do you worship the gang leader then, or do you worship something greater than that?
We just have to navigate our way through these things.
But Matt, why? For me, the question though becomes, like the more questions that the more answers I got, the more questions I had.
Yes. And the more you realize, the more you learn, the less you know.
So healthy.
Yeah.
That's the way it should be.
But you mentioned the word competition with those around you earlier, Matt. And to me, the question then becomes, well, why? And then other questions are spawned.
Because you're insecure.
Is that necessary? Is that the way we're supposed to be?
No, Dave, I'll give you the answer to that. We're animals.
We're competing for survival.
We believe we are the top of the chain, and I think it's a false belief. However, our animal form, or animal form, is the only one, to my knowledge, in the existence of the planet over 4.5 billion years that keeps perfecting ways to exterminate itself.
That's competition.
That is our prime.
So he's just taking it real
claim.
deep now. Yeah, right.
We keep developing ways to exterminate ourselves. So ultimately, we're going to do it.
But it comes useful tech after a while, though.
Yeah, but to me, Matt, I have a different perspective.
Good. Let's hear that, because that's why you're the guest. Dad, can you be quiet for a second, please?
So I hear what you say, and I probably would have agreed with what you said a handful of years ago or more. But it's like, for me, that brings another question. Why? Why are we like that? To me, we are actually the pinnacle of creation. We have so much potential, but the reason that we act the way we do, and so I'm not trying to answer my own question because I don't really have all the answers, but to me, it's the injuries that we pick up. It's the unresolved stuff inside us, the stuff that we shut down, the stuff that we minimize, that we justify. It's all that stuff that gives rise to covering over who we really are and the real light within us that we're created with. And the more I know for myself, the more I've dealt with that stuff, and it hasn't been easy, and it hasn't been any groundbreaking kind of leaps and strides, but over time, the more shit that I chip away, the more of myself I uncover.
Well, the diamond shines.
Yeah, and the more loving I become. And
Dave,
you don't. I don't need somebody else to tell me that I've progressed.
You're already shining.
I notice. I feel it in myself, and that's not coming from a place of arrogance. I do have people that kind of mention, "Oh, yeah, you're different from what you were 5 years ago." But I
Dave,
notice.
We feel it too.
Good. But something I really want to mention, Matt, is that what I've noticed is that chipping away at this stuff, my automatic responses to things have changed for the better. So the questions I used to ask, why do I respond this way? Why do I act this way? My automatic responses have changed. Not in every area, don't get me wrong. I'm no angel. I've got a bucket load of shit to sort out still. But I notice change. And there are some of my friends that have been chipping away at their stuff. I notice changes in them too.
Mm-hmm.
Dave, don't take this the wrong way. From what I've heard tonight, you are an enlightened human being and you are growing exponentially on the right path. And I can see that, I can resonate with that, and I admire it so much.
Thanks for saying that. I would say one thing in response to that, though. I wouldn't call myself an enlightened being. What I am...
Relative to others, you are, pal.
Well, perhaps more self-aware. More self-aware and more prepared to look at my shit. More prepared to perhaps deal with at least some of it.
The Me&Him podcast. So look, we've covered a lot of ground. I kind of sense there's more to tell. Like there's more to the story here, Dave. Am I correct?
Jason, we've yes, there is. Yes, that's the short version. Yes,
son, stop being a marketing man. We've had a wonderful time, and if this leads on to a further development, just as absorbing, I will so much welcome it.
He'll sign up if he is still around. So stay with us, Dad. Take your heart medication. No, let's not end it here. Dave, look, Dad and I are going to have a quick chat on the back end, but thank you so much, A, for turning up, on time and being so open and allowing this to flow in the wild and woolly way that it does. I really appreciate you giving us, letting us hold space for you, or at least to some degree.
Dave, thank you for the privilege of your company. I have enjoyed it immensely. You're a very wise man, and I've learnt so much from our brief discourse.
Yeah, to me, there's a Bible saying that, or a directive, don't hide your light under a bush.
Mm-hmm.
And I used to take a bushel, yes, yep. And to me, I used to take that as don't hide your talents, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
But what I'm seeing more and more, particularly since being a regional host for the men's table, what I'm seeing more and more is that it's important for all of us,
yes,
to share ourselves, to share our journeys,
yes,
to share the warts and all. And for me, there's gold in everyone's story. If I could just add in there, just so that people don't get the wrong idea, like the men's table is for all men, regardless of where they are, regardless of whether they've done some spiritual stuff or whether they're just everyday guys that just want to get together.
Or they've taken drugs or they've just fallen apart.
Yep. And there seems to be a bit of a misconception that things like the men's table are for broken men. And that's not the case. The men's table is for all men, anyone 18 and up. It's a place and a space where men can have better conversations and better connections, where they can be real about the highs and the lows of life.
Can I finish with one of Dad's favorite artists, to quote from Leonard Cohen, that there is a crack in everything and that's how the light gets through, or light. That's how the light gets in.
Yeah.
So and that's where we're at. There's a crack in everything, and it's not a bad thing.
What I loved about that expression was he wasn't talking about the light shining in. He was
shining out.
Talking about it shining
Hey, there we go. Back to yes.
out.
What a nice way to finish.
You poor young fledgling lad.
Well, it kind of sums it up, though, right?
It's. I love the quote. I just had to correct the words and the direction.
Oh my gosh, you're a pair, you two.
Yeah. Well, we used to have these conversations without guests. They're going forever.
Hey, Dave, thank God we're not au pairs.
Yeah. That's a different movie, different podcast. All right, Dave, love your work, dude. Thank you
Cheers,
so much
mate.
for being on, and we'll see you soon.
Yep, cool. Will do.
The Me and Him podcast.